India's challenge of cross-border terrorism and activities with regard to the pro-Khalistani elements that operate almost with impunity in the UK are going to be one of the key features that will be part of the strategic discussions between the two prime ministers. In addition, the Indian government's plan does include talking about, well, the fugitives that continue to be harbored by the UK. Why is it that some of India's most wanted economic offenders continue to be in the UK? Some of them have actually been partying. Vijay Mallya's recent party shots also came to light in the UK, where one asked, why is it that these countries continue to provide almost a safe haven to economic offenders of India? And in fact, to talk more on that, I'm going to be joined by Burzine Waghmar. But before that, I want to quickly play out these big questions, viewers. The big questions that we always ask on the show. Let's put that out for you. First and foremost, will the UK act against the Khalistani terrorist attack and the terror threat that remains? Remember, even when our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, was in the UK the last time, these terrorist elements came to fore once again. Second key question that we'll ask is, will the UK fast-track extradition of several of these terrorists, Khalistani terrorists that are most wanted by India? Thirdly, how will the Modi-Starmer duo counter the terror threat that is an important aspect of the India-UK strategic ties? In addition to that, the agenda will include extradition of, as I said, Lalit Modi, Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, all big economic offenders that are wanted by India and who need to face the Indian law. Let's get in now. Burzine Waghmar joining us live. She's in fact at the South Asia Institute. Mr. Waghmar is at the SOAS and joins us live from London. Thanks so much, sir, for speaking to me on NDTV. Let me start first by asking you, there's a lot on the agenda. One is the trade aspect, which is pretty much coming to an end in terms of fruition of the trade pact. But what about the strategic concerns that India has, whether it is in terms of the Khalistani terrorists or the one related to the economic fugitives?
The question of extradition is already on the cards because India and UK do have an extradition treaty in place for several years. And no doubt these discussions would have been baked into the FTA agreement behind the scenes. There's no question about the toing and froing, and that New Delhi would have been very tough on this aspect with London and would have made clear to London that there are certain red lines. With the economic offenders in question, yes, but more so with the strategic element of secessionists who have sought haven here, as well as in Canada, and use it for their nefarious designs of balkanizing India and the rest in the name of free speech. So that India would have expressed its concerns very, very vigorously to London on that factor. The Labour dispensation currently under Sir Keir Starmer and Prime Minister Carney in Ottawa both have made overtures to India and want to turn a page. By that, I mean, in the Canadian case, from Justin Trudeau's disastrous policies that led to a deep dive in relations, never before seen since independence, and also Sir Keir in the way he took over the Labour Party to actually purge it of hard left elements under Jeremy Corbyn, because Mr. Corbyn was in hack to, quite frankly, the Muslim lobby and other hard left elements who have necessarily felt India as an antagonism and should be dealt with. And they have looked at India unfavorably and will continue to do so. Sir Keir, for his part, wants to put that behind him, and he has, in a manner of speaking, done that. But now the crunch comes in actual extradition. The problem with these offenders and these secessionists in question is the law factor, because the problem with England is that you have a flourishing law racket of ambulance chasing lawyers who have been able to stay the hand of the Home Office even if they wish to see these elements deported. Okay. And that's what primarily is the nub of the issue. Mm-hmm. And it's the same problem which happens also with these illegal aliens that we want to deport. And it's again these lawyers who with trumped up cases and charges, and with judges, quite frankly, who have dispensed with perverse judgments that do not let them go through.
What you're saying in terms of the largest problem with regard to the systemic failure to be able to address some key concerns. But the fact is, whether it is the extradition of Nirav Modi or Lalit Modi or Vijay Mallya, these are fundamental requests of India. And the sense one gets there is that New Delhi's repeated requests haven't led to the kind of response that one would have ideally hoped for from London. And is that likely to now impact the larger relationship?
It will. Under the Modi dispensation, it will, compared to governments in previous years, whether BJP governments or Congress governments who have repeatedly requested London. But London, I wouldn't say has stonewalled their requests, so much has ignored it. In that, the domestic issue for London is not so much the vote bank of ethnic voters, though that does tie in with the two main parties, the Tories and the Labour, but also the question of social cohesion and for minorities, and it would be deemed as pandering to a foreign government. That is how it would be played out here. Can I just take you as a historian very briefly to another aspect? In the aftermath of Operation Blue Star, which goes back to 40 years leading to Mrs. Gandhi's assassination in October 84, the intelligence services here had deputed 2 officers to India to help with the Khalistani separatism issue. And that was discovered after 30 years when government official papers were declassified. And it created a furore here, and no doubt the Khalistani Sikh ethnic community wanted to capitalize on it and embarrass the government of the day by asking why was the British government helping an Indian government on a matter which, quite frankly, for the Indian government was of importance, of national security importance. And these are bilateral arrangements between governments. But you had a voluble, vocal minority here trying to hijack and embarrass the government as to why did the government of the day, under Mrs. Thatcher, take such a lead, which it did quite rightly. So that's how these things get played off. There are these elements. There is the vote factor.
Yes.
There is also the question of social media, which amplifies all this, and the lawyers who are always the sticking problem. That has been an issue with economic offenders, with secessionists, and also with these political elements, not just which India faces, mind you, which of course with the Khalistan angle you have, but also the Gulf countries who have repeatedly requested London to put a clamp on Islamists here. And that has not been very effectively done.
All right, I'm going to leave it there, sir. Thanks much for speaking to me on India Global, on a story that we're going to keep revisiting as we cover Prime Minister Modi's landmark visit to the UK. Well, viewers, as far as the bottom line here is concerned, well, UK cannot afford to be the safe haven anymore when it comes to either harboring Khalistani terrorists or harboring economic fugitives. It's been too long and too many times that India has made those requests. And for the UK to build on this relationship, it needs to act. Yes, the trade relationship is growing. It is growing at a rapid pace, and that also is something that the UK itself needs. UK is an economy that's slowing. It needs to partner with an economic growth engine like India, and which is why the trade pact is a win-win. But for this relationship to really prosper, Starmer needs to now address some of the core concerns that New Delhi has. And it first needs to act against the Khalistani terrorist elements that it has been harboring for too long in the garb of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. All right, viewers, turning attention now to the other story that we are tracking, which is India's strong rebuttal against Pakistan and its renewed attempt to internationalize the Kashmir issue. It's the same rant that Pakistan has been saying again and again and again. It has raised objections over the Indus Water Treaty at the UN Security Council, well, all of which was completely rejected by India and India's permanent representative, Ambassador Harish, who called out Pakistan's duplicity on the issue of terrorism and international peace, slammed Pakistan as a serial borrower from the IMF, adding that Pakistan is so steeped in fanaticism and terrorism that nobody in the Committee of Nations can now afford to have any sane dialogue with Pakistan. Listen in to what Ambassador Harish said when he tore into Pakistan's argument and the baseless claims that Islamabad was making in the United Nations.
Recently, consequent to the gruesome terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, on 22nd April 2025, that led to the killing of 26 innocent tourists, And based on the Council statement of 25th April, where members of the Security Council underlined the need to hold perpetrators, organizers, financiers, and sponsors of this reprehensible act of terrorism accountable and bring them to justice, India launched Operation Sindoor, targeting terrorist camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which was focused, measured, and non-escalatory in nature. On achieving its primary objectives, a cessation of military activities was directly concluded at the request of Pakistan. Mr. President, I am constrained also to respond to the remarks made by the representative of Pakistan. The Indian subcontinent offers a stark contrast in terms of progress, prosperity, and development models. On the one hand, there is India, which is a mature democracy, a surging economy, and a pluralistic and inclusive society. At the other extreme is Pakistan, steeped in fanaticism and terrorism, and a serial borrower from the IMF.